APJ Abdul Kalam once said, "It is very easy to defeat someone, but it is very difficult or hard to win someone." A very good afternoon to you all from India. I'm Vandana Revankar, Assistant Professor from Department of Business Administration. Welcome you all to the fourth day of the International Webinar Series on Awareness of Mediation program, conducted by SSMRV College in association with Snehi Mediation and Counseling, Bengaluru, India. A hearty welcome to our esteemed speaker of the day, Mr. David Anthony Hannigan, Mediator for CEO Ombudsman, World Bank Office in Indonesia. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
I welcome our dear Principal, Dr. S. Anil Kumar, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Vandana. Thank you.
Warm welcome to the faculty members and heads of various departments. And a special welcome to all the participants who have joined us from India and across the world. And also, not to forget to mention, I welcome Dr. Bharti Rao, who is the founder of Snehi Mediation and Counseling. We welcome you, ma'am. I welcome all of you once again. Let us know a little bit about SSMRV College. Shivananda Sharma Memorial RV College, popularly known as SSMRV College, is affiliated to Bengaluru City University and recognized by UGC. SSMRV belongs to RV Group, one of the prestigious educational institutions. Our college has got an A grade by the NAC for the first time during its third accreditation cycle. We are also proud to mention that our students got many ranks and gold medals in the university examinations. SSMRV College has recently been ranked 4th among top 5 colleges in India for Best Value for Money in India Today MRDA Survey 2018. With 360-degree education for wholeness as our foundation, we started out in 1984 to empower passionate students in the fields of commerce, business administration, and computer applications. Today, we offer numerous undergraduate, postgraduate, and emerging technology courses. We have types with international university for pursuing MBA programs, and we do have research programs that promote all-round development while driving innovations and research across domains. We have the best placement wing, having placed numerous students in reputed companies. With excellent infrastructure, SSMRV is preferred as one of the best value for money institutions. Now it's time to know the man behind the success of this renowned institution. I request Ms. Bharti N.S., Assistant Professor from Department of Commerce, to introduce our dear Principal, Dr. S. Anil Kumar. Over to you, Bharti, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. S. Anil Kumar, Principal, SSMRV College. He is a popular teacher among faculty and students. He has an academic experience of over 40 years in the field of commerce and management, both at the UG and PG level. With more than 20 years of experience, research experience, he is a recognized guide for many universities for MPhil and PhD programs and has produced 5 PhDs and 31 MPhils from various universities. Sir has been doing various UGC-sponsored projects and also published articles in leading national and international journals. He has authored more than 17 books in the field of commerce, management, and taxation. The reflection of his hard work and commitment has transformed into various awards. Mentioning a few, Sir has been awarded in recognition of dedicated service as a teacher conferred by His Excellency Dr. Hansraj Bharadwaj, the then Governor of Karnataka, organized by Rotary Bangalore South and Karnataka Civil Defence Corps. He has been awarded for achieving excellence in education from RSST. Sir has received Dr. Abdul Kalam Gold Medal Award from Global Economic Progress Research Association, New Delhi, for his individual achievement and distinguished services in education and research. He has been an NCC under officer and has won the Best Cadet Award. Dr. S. Anil Kumar has also been awarded a D.Litt by the University of Panama, USA. Sir is also an active NAC peer team member who has visited various colleges across India as a part of NAC assessment. Anil sir has got the Best Faculty Award by Vivekananda College of Arts and Science for Autonomous Women. Tamil Nadu during the academic year 2020-21 and Lifetime Achievement Award during 2020-21 by Novel Research Academy, Pondicherry. Speaking on his key focus areas within SSMRV, his academic innovations like the 360-degree education for wholeness model with 5-dimensional approaches, setting up of 30 plus activity centers are all stronghold strategies which aims to take the SSMRV college to greater heights. The direct impact of the same was on getting on the college for A grade by NAC for the first time during its 3rd accreditation cycle. It is with pride we mention that our students have secured many ranks and gold medals in the university examinations. SSMRV College has been ranked 4th among top 5 colleges in India for best value for money in the India Today MRDA survey. The list is endless. With due respect to the time, let me contain my words, and I invite our beloved motivating principal to address the gathering. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bharati. Good afternoon. We are very happy to host this 4-day international webinar series on awareness of mediation. The main purpose of this program is to reach out students of non-law schools. And of course, the basic interest is to bring awareness about mediation among youth. In association with SNEHI, Mediation and Counseling. And this is run by Dr. Bharati Rao. I should really appreciate her efforts and the interest in organizing especially this particular program on mediation, because she has the ambition to spread this mediation program among non-law school students, and she was successful in doing that. In our college, one seminar and a workshop was conducted by her in the previous year, and today she has actually identified well-known speakers in the field of mediation from different parts of the world, from Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, and India. And I think I should really appreciate her effort in spreading and bringing awareness about mediation among students. So today we have with us the most eminent speaker for mediation in World Bank Office of Compliance Advisor. I think he is the well-known speaker, Mr. David Anthony Hannigan, the mediator for CAO and World Bank Office in Indonesia. So I'm very happy that he has accepted our invitation to be the key speaker for this particular program. I also appreciate all the program coordinators, Professor Vandana, Professor Bharati, and Professor Nandini in organizing this particular program. So once again, I would like to welcome on behalf of SSMRV College, RV Educational Institutions, and on my behalf, all the participants and the speaker for this webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. There's a very beautiful saying by a famous saint, Shirdi Sai Baba. Before you speak, ask yourself, is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? Does it improve on the silence? Well, mediation is such thing that helps parties settle their issues in a mutually agreeable way. And the Snehi Mediation Center is a brainchild of Dr. Bharti Rao, which is intended to serve people with such a noble cause. As a certified mediator with Singapore Mediation Center and a level 1 panel member at the Singapore International Mediation Institute, Dr. Bharti Rao's Snehi Mediation and Counseling is an initiative to reach out, facilitate friendship, and assist with looking for solutions to difficult problems. Dr. Bharti Rao is among us to share with us a very interesting program coming up. So over to you, Bharti ma'am, for the details.
Thank you, and a warm welcome to everyone, and to the speaker of today, Mr. David Hannigan. It's a pleasure to have you over with us today to speak, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So we have been conducting this awareness program with an idea to educate the citizens of tomorrow, our students, given that the mediation bill is being deliberated upon in India and it is going to be put on the floor of the parliament shortly. So another initiative other than the talks that we are conducting with eminent speakers like you, there is an announcement about a short film making competition for which I seek your permission and the permission of the principal to make announcements. So can I do this? Yeah? Okay. Can I have the next slide, ma'am? Yeah? Okay. This is a short film making competition in mediation for spreading academic awareness of mediation amongst non-law school students and all students in India. Any student, non-law school student, is eligible to apply. There is no registration fee. This is to encourage all students to participate, understand, and take the message of mediation forward. The guidelines for submission are put on lesson number 17 in YouTube channel, Snehi Mediation and Counseling. So students can go through this particular YouTube video for submitting. Can I have the submission guidelines, ma'am? The next slide, please. Yeah. So here are the guidelines for submission. I'll go through this briefly. This competition is for amateurs to showcase their learnings in mediation along with their skill sets in photography. Aim of these videos is to generate interest, create basic awareness, and to promote mediation. Any form of filmmaking like slides, animation, recording of real life is permitted. The videos have to be in English, and videos can be up to 40 minutes, inclusive of the title slide, the creator details, and so on. Next, ma'am. Next, please. So you can find all of these guidelines in the YouTube video that I will be uploading as lesson number 17. Ma'am, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. All entries will be reviewed through blind peer review process by certified mediators from India and across the world. Selected entries will be uploaded in YouTube channel Snehi Mediation and Counseling with title of the film, name of the video producer and coach and teacher details mentioned in the channel description. Viewers will also see details again as a slide in the video recording as a credit. All video producers will be given certificates jointly by Snehi Mediation and Counseling and SSMRV College, Bengaluru. All of you are encouraged to attempt, and for this, take the first step. Go to the next slide. How do you start? For someone who has almost no awareness or very little awareness of mediation, this can be overwhelming. All you need to do is watch the simple, interesting, informative, and interactive videos created specially for you to understand what mediation means and covering various aspects of mediation. These videos are uploaded as lessons in YouTube channel Snehi Mediation and Counseling as lessons number 1 to 12, and you progress from lesson number 1 to lesson number 12. All lessons are short, just about 35 to 40 minutes. Some lessons are just about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's going to be easy. Now, this is how you prepare your entry for the competition. Once you think you have an idea of what mediation means, after going through these basic lessons, lessons number 1 to 12. Lesson number 13 is on how to write a case study in mediation. Along with this, we have lesson 14 going on sample case study. And then, as already mentioned, we have lesson number 17, which is guidelines for submission of short filmmaking, short films that are to be submitted as entries in this competition. So wish all of you the best and looking forward to a number of entries and large and active participation in the first of its kind competition in India. Next.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for that elaborate details about the competition.
Yeah, and also there is this no objection certificate, sorry about this, that has to be submitted as a separate file along with the entries. And the format for this, again, you can look at this in the video that will be uploaded as a guidance for participants who want to submit their entries. And thank you, David and Principal Sir, and all of you for patiently, standing by and listening to these announcements. It comes in the way of the talk and the topic, but then I had to do this given that we are trying to reach out to the students. Please, I apologize for this, but I had to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. We do understand. Yes, it has to reach the students, and I hope it has sparked a lot of interest among the participants to take part in this competition. Now, I know we all are eagerly waiting for our speaker session to go on. So it's time to know about our esteemed speaker of the day, Mr. David Anthony Hannigan. I request Ms. Nandini, Assistant Professor from Department of Commerce, to introduce her to the gathering. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, very good morning to one and all present here. This is Nandini, Assistant Professor from Department of Commerce. So, here to introduce our guest speaker for the day. Mr. David A. Hannigan is an alternate dispute resolution practitioner doing mediation, arbitration, dispute resolution, case management, in his own business outfit in Indonesia and in the Singapore Mediation Center. He is on the panel of mediators at the Singapore Mediation Center. Earlier on, he was a lecturer in Diakin University, Monash University, and Curtin Universities in Indonesia. He has been a staff coach and mentor, having conducted trainings in many law firms in Indonesia. He did his bachelor's in law from University of New South Wales, Australia, master's in University of British Columbia in Canada, and he is currently a PhD candidate in University of Sydney in Australia. The past many years, he is a mediator in the World Bank Office of the Compliance Advisor, the CAO, based in Indonesia. We are glad to have you amongst us, sir. And the topic for the webinar is Mediation in the World Bank Office of Compliance Advisor Ombudsman. I wish everyone a very happy learning. Over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you very much for that very warm introduction. And a special thanks to our host today and Dr. Bharati Rao for her kind invitation and her friendship over the years. It is probably the main reason why I responded, and I'm here today. So I thank everybody. And in light of the topic that Dr. Rao was just talking about, the video, let me just share my screen here for a moment. And so, as you mentioned, I am a mediator with the CEO office, the Compliance Advisor Ombudsman's Office of the World Bank. It's in the private sector, though, in the sense of we deal with projects from the IFC, the International Finance Corp, and MIGA, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So when there are complaints with funding of those projects, that's where the CEO gets involved. And what I thought I'd do at the beginning, in light of the mention about videos and the age we live in of videos, I thought I would start with a very short video. It's only 2 minutes long, but it gives an overview of the work that is done by the Compliance Advisor Ombudsman's Office. And then what I thought I'd do after we watch the video is I take you through the process of a complaint and how it moves through the dispute resolution or mediation process. So I'm going to begin with a short video. It's an overview, as I said. It's only 2 minutes long, so let me do that now. Here we go.
The World Bank Group funds development projects all over the world to generate positive outcomes for people. But sometimes communities believe they are negatively impacted by these projects. CAO was established to help address these concerns as an independent office that responds to complaints about private sector projects financed by IFC and MIGA, members of the World Bank Group. What does this mean exactly? We are dedicated to helping communities have their concerns heard and addressed in the development process, and to ensuring that IFC and MIGA deliver the best possible development outcomes at the local level. How do we work toward these objectives? Well, our process is straightforward. When someone submits a complaint to CAO, we first determine its eligibility based on 3 criteria. If a complaint is eligible, CAO assesses the issues, consulting both the complainants and the IFC or MIGA finance company about how they would like to proceed. Dispute resolution offers the chance for dialogue with the help of a mediator. If an agreement is reached, CAO works with parties, offering support as agreed upon actions and solutions are implemented. Through compliance, CAO investigates complaints that raise substantial concerns about a project's environmental and social outcomes. Compliance investigations help IFC and MEGA identify gaps in the implementation of their environmental and social standards and provide an opportunity for them to respond to negative project impacts on local communities. CAO's advisory role gathers insights from dispute resolution and compliance cases to generate lessons and guidance tools. CAO's advice helps IFC and MEGA improve project development outcomes and prevent negative impacts in the future. Our process is predictable, and our mission is clear. Through solutions, accountability, and learning, CAO aims to improve project development outcomes for local communities around the world. Want to learn more? Visit us online today.
Okay, so that's a little bit of an overview of what happens. But what I thought we'd do is go through the process. And as you know, most complaints don't begin as complaints. They begin from things actually being in a happy situation normally, and then there's some kind of a disruption. So I'd like you to imagine that you're in happy land at the moment, and everything's going well, and you hear about a new project. So let's imagine we're all members of the community of Happy Land, and we hear that there's this new private project, and the new project is to do with trying to generate electricity, and it's going to have an impact on the local community of Happy Land. It will affect the community themselves and the environment. And what I want us to do is to think about how this community may react to the project, especially if we imagine that there might be some negative impact on the community or the environment. And so if we have a think of an example of a project, the one that I would like you to think about is a hydropower project, which the hydropower projects became quite popular as an alternative to the burning of coal or gas, where there are emissions. But of course, the hydro power projects themselves are not without their own impact in the environment and the community. So one of some of the examples you often hear about when it comes to hydro plants are, we have some physical impacts on the air, the water temperature. You have biological impacts on the both the fauna and the flora. And of course, as we mentioned before, socioeconomic impacts in terms of the community. And these would be then some of the common concerns that communities would have. So if we go back and we think to ourselves, if you're members of this community of Happy Land and you have now this new project, and some of the concerns you might have to do with information. You might not really know much about the information. And of course, you'd have these other concerns that I've mentioned here: physical impact, biological impact, and socioeconomic impact. So then what are your options? Well, traditionally, the options would be, you might try to negotiate with the company. You might even try litigation through the courts. And our focus today is on mediation that is made possible because of one thing that's very important here, and that is the money that comes to invest in the project. If the money comes from the IFC or MEGA that I mentioned earlier on, so if you remember at the beginning, we're talking about projects funded by IFC and MEGA. And if the project is funded in that way, then there is a possibility that CAO will assist. Now, what the if you think about a project like, let's say, the hydropower project, something that would look like this. So here we have the water, and the water then is let through to generate the power. So we have something that would resemble this. You have your reservoir of water. It comes down through the turbine, and it generates the power, and that then goes out through the cables here. Now, let's say the community is not happy with what's going on, and they want to make a complaint. So the process begins with a complaint. So what we have in our procedures is the complaint will come into CAO, and basically the complainants will lodge a complaint. They will explain their concerns. Basically, how are they going to be affected in terms of the social impact or the environmental impact? And they will provide us with the basic details. And then what happens is we have to assess the complaint. So in terms of assessing the complaint, we have a look, first of all, is it actually eligible for assessment? And if it's not, then we close the case, we can't help. So in terms of being eligible for assessment, you might remember from the video, there were 3 aspects that we have to look at. The first one, it has to be related to a project that is funded by the IFC or MEGA. That's number 1. So the money comes through IFC or MEGA. The issues that are involved relate to the environment and the social impact. So you remember the example that we looked at. We have environmental and social impacts. And the third one is that the complaint, the people making the complaint, the complainants, will be affected themselves by the issues raised. So the complainants will be affected. They either already are affected or they will be affected by the environmental and social impacts. Now, assuming the complaint then meets these 3 criteria, we begin the process of assessing the complaint. And so the first thing that we do is that we normally we will meet with the complainants to undertake an assessment and to understand what the issues are. So you can imagine with something like the hydropower plant, there might be concerns with the water, the fish, the flooding in the area, etc. So we'll meet with the complainants and we'll see what issues have been raised. And then we'll also talk to the other stakeholders. And if in this case, let's say the company that's running the project and the complainants, if they agree, then we go to mediation. And we begin the process of mediation. And the basic steps then are, we establish some ground rules. You can imagine with some of these projects, they're big projects, and this doesn't happen quickly. We're talking, months and years for this kind of well, certainly months. Sometimes it goes on years. But basically, the communities involved, it might be lots of different communities that can be affected. A case recently I was involved with, there were 17 different communities that were being impacted by a project. And so, establishing some ground rules, for example, how they're going to deal with the media, the information, the talks, are they going to be confidential, or how is information going to be released to the media? So those kind of ground rules need to be established, and they often themselves are mediated, you know. So the mediation process is not just about reaching some grand final settlement. It's actually at each step in the process, there's mediation going on. So next we would look at trying to design some kind of a framework then for the talks. And when we start doing this, we're also involved in capacity building. So we get involved with training, making sure that the communities have the skills that are needed within in the mediation, the negotiations. So there's a lot of capacity building that goes on. And once we've designed the framework, and you know, the framework is going to be a mixture, let's say, of private meetings, public meetings, something, it ends up being something like this in terms of a design framework. We have the complaint, we get ready with the capacity building, we identify the community representatives, we identify the company representatives, we have joint sessions, we have private sessions, we have process for deciding what information can be trusted by the parties. As I said, we have capacity building and coaching. So there's a lot that goes into this. We have other groups that are outside the sessions that need to be involved. So it's quite a complex, or it can be quite a complex process, just, you know, designing and getting things ready. And then at step 5 here, we get into facilitated dialogue. And one of the big issues in a lot of these complaints has to do with information. It's very common that the communities just don't know what's going on. They don't have good information. The companies who are running the projects are not supplying good information. And then the information that is supplied is not necessarily considered credible by the communities. And so what we have is a problem with if you like, there's no common data. You know, the facts that the company are saying, these are the facts, the community is saying, no, they're not. So for example, with the water being polluted, for example, or, you know, chemicals in the water or whatever it is, or fish being, you know, mercury levels going up, or these are the kinds of problems then that you need to be able to have some kind of independent fact finding. Or one of the ways this is done is through joint research, or you jointly frame the questions, or there can be independent fact finding, or there's some kind of a panel. And so if you have a look here, you'll see that the credibility goes up along here. And in terms of trust, the trust is along this axis. And so what we find is in the area of joint research, where the parties and the experts work together, this is the way that the fact finding is most trustworthy and most credible. So that's, you know, that's what's going on in the facilitated dialogue. And as a mediator, you're involved in, you know, getting the parties to come to some kind of common understanding, at least about the facts at the beginning. So even before you think about solutions and you know, canvass different options, trying to establish what the facts are at the beginning can be a big challenge. But assuming things go well, then we enter into some kind of a settlement agreement. But that's not the end of the role for CAO. So CAO is also involved in the ongoing monitoring and making sure whatever was agreed to is actually implemented. So if not, we come back, we go from 5, 6, 7, we might go back to 5 and have to renegotiate some of these things that were agreed, but perhaps are not being implemented. And so I tend to think of these settlement agreements are more like peace treaties, in the sense that, you know, they're large, they involve a lot of people, different communities, and not just the companies that are running the projects, but often the government might get involved in some aspects of these agreements. And so they're like modern day peace treaties. I kind of think of them that way. So basically, once we have an agreement and once the monitoring goes on, then we get to the point where the case is closed. So that's the process. We start with the assessment. If the parties want to go to mediation, then we facilitate the rest of the steps. Now, at any point, if the parties decide it's not working or they don't want to go to mediation, the alternative is compliance. And I'm not going to go into that today in detail, but maybe if people have questions, I can talk a little bit about that. But I'm really here today to talk to you about this process, the mediation, and these 8 steps, if you like. This is our process. This is how we work through the mediation at the CAO. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the general process. And if we think back to the Happy Land dispute, right, this is the process they would go through if the community and the company wanted to mediate. I thought I would mention for you that you might be interested in is that in our website, there's a lot of information, but it's also information about cases. And if you're interested in cases in India, I'm based in Indonesia, but I did a little quick search here on cases in India. And so if you come in here, for example, and you want to have a look at what's going on in any country, you can come in here and have a look. And in India, there are many examples where our office has been involved. I was not personally involved in these, and you can see some have gone to compliance. But if you come down to the bottom here, you'll see there are dispute resolution cases. And one here is actually a hydro power plant. So if you're interested in seeing in real life what might happen, you could come into the website and have a look. And if you click on this, you will find that you come in and you will see that we have a tracking system for cases. So the eligibility we've done, we do the assessment report. And in this case, the parties chose to go to the dispute resolution, the mediation. And you can read about the case. There's a short synopsis here about the complaint. Over here, you'll see the issues. So there were some risk management issues in this case, about resources, community health and safety was an issue, the water was an issue. And then what benefits would there be for the community in this case? That was also something that was an issue for the complainants. And so there's a little bit more information and it's summarized, but also which you might find really interesting is that we also include the documentation. So you can actually see, coming in here, you can see our assessment report that we did. And later on, you can see that the parties, in this case, in 2007, they made a commitments register. So like an agreement, but it was not a formal agreement. It was just a list of the commitments that the company said they were going to do. And in this case, if I remember correctly, there were some problems with the commitments that the complainants felt that the company was not living up to the commitments that they made. And so there was another group of commitments made, and a new register was made there in 2008. And then we had our final report, and there's also a bit of a report here about what, you know, kind of an update. And then what happened in this one was in the end, there was also a compliance report that was done. So in terms of documentation, you might find those interesting. I think what I'll do is, if you are interested, what I might do actually is give you the link here for the general link. I'm going to put this in the chat. And if you are interested later, you can perhaps have a look. One of the things, the last thing that I mentioned is that we have on our website a lot of resources. And in particular, if you're interested in mediation, the toolkits you might find useful. If you're a mediator or a party or a company or a member of the community, there's a lot in here that you might find of interest. We have information about how to make the process more gender inclusive. We also have a kind of getting started kit, which explains the principles that we operate in. There's a brochure here about representation for communities and for the companies. And so you'll find, and there's a joint fact-finding brochure there. So there's quite a lot there on the website for you if you're interested. And at that point, I think I'll stop talking, and I'll let you ask questions, and if you want to, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. So thank you.
Yeah. So this would involve the parties and the mediator also to have knowledge about the culture, the language, and so on of the place.
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the brochures we have here is the Getting Started brochure, and you'll see the principles that we operate on are, well, one is about the self-determination of the parties, but exactly what you mentioned about the cultural appropriateness, you know, the representation. These are the principles: independence, predictability, flexibility, empowering the parties, and being inclusive. So if you remember at the beginning when I was talking about designing the process, right? When we design the process, it's in here that right from the beginning, we build capacity and we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. You know, with some of the meetings in the communities, it's not always possible, but we often have public meetings where everybody can come in. Then there are other meetings where it's representatives. And so, you know, they report back. We also try and, some of these projects are in remote areas. And so, you know, it takes a lot of planning to try and be inclusive as possible. But yes, that is what we try to do, and we try to be sensitive to local communities and different cultures.
So it would help if the mediator knew the language that the community that he's taking care of.
Yeah, absolutely. We have normally local mediators who are involved, and there's a lot of co-mediation. So when you establish the ground rules, we often also establish how we're going to work in terms of translation. You know, a recent one that I was involved in Indonesia, it's not just the national language that is spoken, but in each region you have local dialects. So you know, within the Indonesian community, you might need people who then are going to translate into the language of the remote region. And then if we're dealing with a company that is a foreign company that's involved in the project, then we might be dealing with people also who are not speaking the national language or might not even speak English. And so you can have different language at the local community level, up to the region, up to the national, and then you've got often English as a common language, but then you might have representatives from the company that is investing that might, they may well speak a different language. So these meetings get quite complicated. They have a number of translators, and things don't move quickly. Let me say that. Yeah. And with the pandemic, you can imagine trying to organize meetings, trying to travel to remote areas has been very difficult. So a lot of these projects over the last few years have had to be extended. They're taking longer than they normally would, but it is not a quick process by any means, and you can understand why.
And given that World Bank is for funding, and a mediator is a very important person, he's facilitating the dispute resolution process. So what about the security of the mediator? Like, have you here?
Yeah, that can be an issue. One of the things that when we have a complaint, so when the communities make a complaint, you'll see here that we have in the beginning, this is like a template for the complaint. We do not wish our identity to be disclosed. There's certainly concerns for local communities about reprisals, and that's something that we deal with. A lot of activists in some of the countries, they may feel threatened, and that might be an issue. And also for the mediator, it's something that needs to be considered, yes. So security is an issue that does come up from time to time. And we have ways of dealing with it. And in fact, there are, it's another area that CAO looks at closely in terms of security and also the reprisals for the community members. That's a big concern in some of these issues in some countries. So yes.
And another aspect that came to my mind is with translators and interpreters coming into the picture, the issue of confidentiality in mediation. So that is another area that one needs to think about.
Yeah, it's always an issue with so every person involved from the side of CAO signs a non-disclosure or confidentiality agreement. So that's something that happens at the beginning. And even, anyone on the periphery that might be involved in the support, if we are going into remote areas and we're hiring cars and using drivers, they all have to sign confidentiality agreements as well. So yeah, it is an issue. It is something that we consider, and it often is dealt with if we go back a moment and we think about the ground rules. So often in here we talk about the confidentiality, and that's a concern for the community and also for the company as well, right? How is that going to be dealt with? So yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that has to be dealt with early on.
Okay, so the support staff also, they have to sign the confidentiality agreement, and in case something leaks out, because these are all very high profile issues, then there will be investigation dealing with all these people, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. So again, it's we facilitate. What you've got to remember as the mediator is that even the ground rules, the rules that we're going to use, are mediated, right? They negotiate them between the parties, and we facilitate that negotiation. But it's really up to the parties to decide. And sometimes the parties have the rules. They also have the punishment, if you like, for the rules if they're broken. And that's something that the parties negotiate themselves and deal with themselves. The principles that I mentioned earlier, I'll put them up again for you. But the main one that I think is important just to remember as as mediators is that the whole, it's the parties that have to agree on the purpose, the principles, the scope, the structure of the process. So it's not like CAO comes in and has a process and says, okay, you've got to fit this. It is negotiable. We're flexible on it. And what I'm showing you here is a standard, the standard process. But in terms of designing the actual, the design of the process in here, this framework, within that, it's quite flexible, and it's up to the parties really to negotiate and decide on the design that they want, what's going to work for them. And we just try to facilitate that. So the mediation, I think it's important to remember, it's not just about mediating. People always think about the mediation, or often think about mediation down here as the settlement agreement. Well, okay, that may or may not happen, but it's the process itself that's also negotiated, and a mediator often plays a big role in designing or in facilitating the design of that process. So I think a lot of the institutions are a little bit more rigid in their process, but I think perhaps in these cases you have to be a bit more flexible, yeah, because sometimes as well we're dealing with indigenous communities who have their own form of dispute resolution, and so to get back to our principles here, it is about the self-determination of the parties, and it is about being flexible and culturally appropriate. So these are the principles that guide us. So I hope that helps to explain. Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
I think it is, other than the banking situations, I think it's what is the role of a mediator in, especially in dispute resolution between countries nowadays?
Yeah, big. Well, the diplomats and the peacemakers. I think more and more you do see mediation coming into play, and not just in between countries, but what I've noticed more and more is with business. That let me just we are talking about the World Bank here, but since you mentioned it, one of the recent schemes that I'm involved in here is the telecommunications and subscription television. They're doing an alternative dispute resolution scheme. The Financial Industry Dispute Resolution Center in Singapore, they handle disputes between their customers and the banks, or customers and financial industry. And a lot of these disputes probably would have gone to court in the past. But what we're finding now is that, people want to solve their problems in a much quicker way. We think about, we're all, in the world we live in, a social media, and the video is a a prominent feature of society, as we discussed earlier. And that's why I think making the films is a great idea. And it's why I showed the film at the beginning. It's a way, certainly the younger generation, they absorb their information and they communicate with a lot more visual than perhaps older generations did. And I see that happening in business now. People want to solve problems quickly. They don't want to go to court. They don't want to spend years in the litigation, and where you might win at one level and then there's an appeal and another appeal. And also in a lot of countries, there might not be the trust in the judicial system that there is in other countries. So your question relates to the big picture of disputes between countries, but I think the role of mediation and the growing role of mediation, it's not just in the big disputes. Obviously we're in the midst of a war at the moment with Russia and Ukraine, and there are parties in there trying to play the role of peacemakers. But I think, if you look around you, and in business and in universities and in education system and all industries and all sectors, what you're finding is that mediation is becoming a much more popular alternative. So I think the growth of mediation, I'm very optimistic about mediation and its growth in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just think it suits our time. The court system hasn't changed in 200 odd years. If you think about the court system in England, and what it is today, it hasn't changed a lot, right? Whereas I think mediation is a lot more flexible and more adaptable to the times. Yes. So that's my pitch for mediation. I do believe in it. I think it's a very useful method of dispute resolution.
Definitely, yes, sir. And the session was very interesting. And I must say that however the complex the process must be, I think sir has explained it beautifully and very easily for us to understand how the mediation actually goes. And also, we also realize that it has lots of challenges. And yes, the mediation is simple, but we need to be prepared with right approaches. So it was a very informative session, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you. I'm very happy to share what I can with you, and I hope you found it useful. So thank you very much. And if anybody has questions beyond the session, you can always send me a message. You have my details, and please feel free to share them with anyone. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. So thank you very much.
Great. That's really useful, sir. So I take this privilege to formally thank each one of you for your presence today. I'm immensely thankful to Mr. David Hannigan for sparing his valuable time with us. A special thanks to our dear principal, Dr. S. Anil Kumar, for constantly supporting us in all our endeavors. And I wholeheartedly thank Dr. Bharti Rao's initiative for this event. Because of her, we have been able to hold such a wonderful session, a 4-day program. Thank you, ma'am. And I wholeheartedly also thank all the faculties, heads of various departments, and participants for being with us throughout. Tomorrow, we have the concluding event at the same time and the same meeting link. So I hope to see you tomorrow once again. Stay tuned, all of you. Thanks once again to all of you. Have a happy evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.